the co-op horror game, full of scares, laughs, tension, and levity. Carried by proximity voice chat, wacky cryptids, and social media. Want a casual experience that's fun with friends and easy to get into, but has a steep difficulty to enjoyment ratio curve? Try Lethal Company. If you want a scarier, complex, and more in-depth system of sleuthing for entities, Phasmophobia would be perfect for you. Want to just goof off for an hour and a half with your friends and some weird monsters for the vine? Take a look at Content Warning. But for the best of all worlds, enter R.E.P.O. Lethal Company was a phenomenon. Not only is it a really fun game with friends,
this is what Lethal Company was made for.
It was also the perfect streamer / content creator bait. You grab a lobby with some funny people, do some menial tasks to gain some progression and manufacture a story, use the proximity voice chat for some improv antics. If you want to do that too, that'd be sick. Oh! Well... and then screech loudly when a giant mannequin comes barreling towards you at Mach 40.
Oh shit.
What?
Springhead.
Instant YouTube and Twitch classic. It's a great way to kill a few hours with some friends, and the random level generation can keep the level-to-level moments fresh. But for me, it's not really as fun as I want in a long-term sense. After about an hour or so of play, my friends and I generally get a bit bored and move on to something else. In my opinion, it's a little too loose and random. The objective is just get items, bring them back to the ship for quota, and try not to die in the process. It's very simple and it's easy to pick up for an evening with a somewhat skilled player and have a good time, but after a few moons, it can get pretty stale. And then consider a game like Phasmophobia, which is much more involved and requires a lot more depth of understanding to really enjoy, meaning it's harder to get into, but the sheer variety of gameplay goals and challenges give it a lot more staying power in general. Unfortunately, because of the complexity making it harder to get into, less people are going to derive enjoyment from it, making it harder to get a group of 4 to play. So, R.E.P.O. When I first heard of it, it was more through a vague and somewhat negative kind of like along the lines of, oh great, yet another Lethal Company, just what we need. Is this gonna be like the new slop trend or whatever? Something like that, I don't remember exactly. But you look at the original splash page and yeah, it kind of felt like that. And this wouldn't be the first time that we've tried a Lethal Company Company-like? I'm going with company-like. We did play Content Warning last year, just for a bit, but we got bored pretty quickly. It went way too far in the way of easy to get into for a few hours. Since the primary goal of Content Warning is having near-miss encounters with enemies, entire squad wipes are all too common, and spectating for lengthy periods is just not fun. And also the overall gameplay gets very repetitive very quickly. There's way too much random chance on if you're actually going to be able to succeed or not, and it just gets boring after a good couple hours, like I said. But after logging a fair few sessions of R.E.P.O. at varying levels of sobriety, I think I can safely say that this game is the pinnacle of accessible co-op horror, and this is why. Why are we playing Keep Away? Give me the cart. I can't get up. Problem. No, not problem. It's dead.
Nose.
God damn it.
Yeah, don't touch his nose.
Oh shit, I touched its nose.
What? Seth, you fucking...
I'm sorry.
No.
Oh, upgrades.
Jesus Christ.
R.E.P.O. strikes a perfect middle ground within the large co-op stupid antics with your friends game. In fact, I can see definitive elements from Phasmophobia, Lethal Company, of course, and a little bit of Deep Rock Galactic. Lately, I prefer to steer away from the game is good because like other game arguments, but it's the way that all of these elements blend together that make it a solid whole. Primarily, R.E.P.O. masters a combination of approachability and tension. We'll get really into depth on why later, but in a genre where the horror gets outclassed quickly by multiplayer goofiness, R.E.P.O. can get and stay incredibly tense even with 4 knuckleheads constantly throwing each other into pits.
Seth is gonna fall off the balcony into the void.
No, I'm not.
Is that a premonition or a guess?
Fortune.
And let's last one so we can get going.
No!
No fucking way.
It was a premonition.
No fucking way.
For starters, it is incredibly easy to get into. Within my first level, I grasped the mechanics enough to actually lock in and save the group a bit after only minimal instruction on how the game works. Granted, I did actually play the tutorial, which... Oh shit, okay, this game actually has a tutorial. It's not insanely comprehensive, doesn't cover enemies or anything, which is good, but it does go over the basic gameplay. Movement, hiding, grabbing, maneuvering objects, the cart, the general goal of the game, and then it ends. Time to play. So allow me to not only describe how the game works, but also the reasons why the gameplay loop is so good, as well as those influences I mentioned, and how it manages tension. The core progression of R.E.P.O is much the same as Lethal Company, but a bit more linear. You start a session, are brought to a randomly generated dungeon based on one of 3 level sets, and need to hunt for loot while avoiding monsters. For item collection, you're limited to 1 item at a time, using a physics-based air grabber thing to hold it. These items also have weight, requiring strength upgrades or multiple people to carry larger items, which is really cool. Consideration needs to be taken on navigation around the level and around other players, because these objects can be damaged and thus lose value. And if these objects take enough damage, they will fully break and will no longer be collectible. And in needing to run, hide, or even fight various monsters, there's a frequent balancing act of the player's life versus the item they are carrying. This allows for the consequences of death to be quite unique in comparison to other games of the genre. By and large, in these games, you die and you're dead. You drop your loot and spectate other players until everyone is dead and the level is complete. In R.E.P.O, deceased players can actually be respawned in the extraction points with 1 hit point remaining. Health is traded through a sort of give and take system, whereby healing an ally reduces the healer's health by the same amount, allowing revived players to be brought up from a 1-hit kill to viability at the cost of some overall team health. In this vein, death is not permanent, meaning when you die, it doesn't just turn into a watch your friends have fun simulator. Oh shit, I'm alive. Am I? But have too many people die too often and the entire team becomes weaker as a result. But overall team health is not the only consideration for death. If you're carrying, say, a vase worth $2,600 and are set upon by an enemy, then take a turn too hard, drop it in a panic, or even die, the vase will break and that $2,600 is permanently lost for the level. Sure, it isn't that extreme every single time, but it can significantly raise the stakes, especially if you're down to the wire and need every cent. I actually had this happen to me. We got incredibly unlucky with a chef spawn that destroyed half our items as we were trying to do our second extraction point, and then killing 2 of us in the process. That round, oh my god, that round was a long one, but we did come out on top though, just barely. But I can hear you ask, if all of the items are breakable and you can only carry 1 at a time, then how do you beat the game? Well, that's what the cart is for. The cart is an easily movable object with a padded interior that allows for less risky item movement. Items stored safely inside the cart will not take damage or break from being knocked around. It does have a limited size though, and it doesn't work 100% of the time. The larger and heavier items that I mentioned earlier will not fit inside the cart. Trust me, we have tried. Those you're gonna have to get with some old-fashioned teamwork. Though in this game, teamwork doesn't necessarily make the dream work. Well,
This thing's basically fucking worthless.
no, $9,000, $7,000 is $7,000. No, the fuck?
Watch this, watch this.
You guys are being mean to me. Don't fucking do it again. No.
You stupid fucking clown.
Oh god damn it. Oh shit.
I'm tall.
It's fine.
You went
Fuck.
Okay, no one touch anything.
God, no! Ah!
Go down.
God damn it.
Read what that says on the screen.
Are you still watching Moose Fighting Volume 2 Antler Mania? Oh, you! Items range in size, durability, weight, and value. The least valuable being around $500 to $600 and the most well above $20,000. Keeping one of these computers intact all the way to the extract point can single-handedly meet quota for the section, but the small items do add up very quickly. The cart having limited space is a constant consideration. While the inside is padded, it does not have a gamified protection field or anything like that. If it's packed too full, items on the top of the cart can and will slide and fall out, taking damage. They can also collide with walls and doorways if they're sticking out, and all other sorts of things can go wrong.
Now,
They are onto
use
nothing.
backwards.
As long as whoever's driving it isn't an absolute tool.
Okay, well,
And they've chosen.
have you seen this group?
Way to
God.
do it. You
No,
just have to
oh
grab
my
the other
God.
side. Dude.
To assist with finding items, as some can be quite small to even a blink and you'll miss it degree, they will pop up on the HUD for visibility upon being initially spotted by a player. The item gets a quick highlight and will be added to the map for all players, which we'll talk about later. Once your card is filled with enough items to meet or exceed the quota, or Lady Luck has smiled upon you with some large expensive loot, it's time for you to make your merry way to the extraction point. This is where I can feel some Deep Rock Galactic creeping through. Except for the first 1 or 2 levels that only have one extraction point. Part of the challenge and progression is, along with finding loot and dodging monsters, you have to find and complete up to 3 additional extraction points and then make it back to the truck to leave. This mechanic here, above all else, is where R.E.P.O exceeds Lethal Company in the fun and entertaining factor, at least for me. Instead of a rough overall quota that encompasses 3 days, each level has a defined quota that you must meet before you can move on. This lends to the linearity and objective-oriented gameplay that I love. Each extract point has a set quota that must be met at minimum. Once the items on the platform meet or exceed it, the extraction process starts, taking away the items and depositing spare excess cash back in the form of a money bag. Keeping this bag safe is crucial. Subsequent extraction points will have the same quota that you'll need to meet multiple times in one level, so those leftovers will need to be used. This can be mostly avoided with proper planning, map scouting, and object preparation, but the levels get pretty big as you get into the later days. Bigger levels mean more opportunities for enemies to spawn and more opportunities to get cut off from a party. This makes each level get a little bit harder as you get farther along with the extraction points. I don't think the game actually spawns more enemies as you get deeper in, but because of the size of the level and because of the spreading out you're going to be doing, it's going to feel harder. Having an amalgamation of value stored in one item can be highly risky, but also convenient. Another mechanic lending to the tension. A team can front load all the value in the level to the first extract while the level feels less dangerous. Completing the extract and using the huge bag of money can make the latter half of the level much faster, leading to less potential enemy exposure. But one major fuck up, and that's the game. There's a fucking eyeball.
Really?
I didn't mean to drop him.
A series of unfortunate events for real.
My
For real.
God, the pit.
Watch him drop the fucking cart
He
into
was
the
off
pit.
cart.
Risk, reward, tension. And of course, you want the excess money. The final extraction point in the level absorbs all the value placed into it, including everything over the quota. This all gets added to, I guess, a bank account or something, a company card maybe, the cloud, I guess. Any items found after the final extract can't be taken, so they are functionally worthless. I would argue it's wise to pump as many items into the first point and just focus on defending the bag while picking up any missed odds and ends on the way to future extraction points. Jesus Christ. How many times am I going to say extraction point in this video? Anyway, after the final point is complete, things get bad. There's a power shutoff effect leading to the map getting darker, and I'm fairly certain the difficulty ramps up. This is another thing that there's no hard evidence I can find, but thematically it makes sense for a final mad dash to the truck, and it certainly feels like the monsters pop out a little more frequently. Regardless, on the later levels, like I said, the levels get really big. You're gonna find yourself quite far from the truck more often than not when completing that final extraction point. So even if it isn't actually harder, you'll have to scoot past any of the monsters you encountered earlier that are still milling about. And the levels can be quite maze-like and hard to navigate at times, which leads me to the map. Something I don't particularly like about games such as Lethal Company or Phasmophobia is the general need of someone staying back at the ship or van as a sort of Overwatch figure. It can be an interesting and important role, but a lot of the time, You'll either end up with nobody wanting to do it because it isn't particularly fun, or somebody who is bad at it and gets everyone killed. I'm sure this mechanic is one that a lot of people really like, and it does a good job for what it is, but personally, I'm both bad at it and I find it dreadfully boring for a few reasons. In both Lethal Company and Phasmophobia, it's pretty obvious when everyone is dead. Either their dots on the map stopped moving, or their statuses in the truck have stopped changing, or something like that.
Why is Foxtrot not moving? Why is Seth not moving?
It kind of removes a lot of the tension for me. Generally, if all 3 other players die and the ship princess saw the deaths were to creatures, the only choices are leave and maybe miss out on quota, or attempt to grab the items anyway and risk death. It usually ends in death. I could only see or be in that situation so many times before it is just boring. Also, the ship princess is generally safe. Lethal Company does throw some curveballs with the eyeless dogs and the giants and whatnot, but they don't always spawn. The main concern is really not being able to communicate with the other players if, say, a radio is dead. It's just not very interesting for repeat playthroughs. And of course, with the loose nature of LC's quota, if it's day 1 and everyone dies, the survivor and the ship can just bail and attempt to make it up later. And yeah, you can just not use the map on the ship, like you control the buttons you press and everything, but it's kind of a major gameplay feature and it would be asinine to not use if you have the players. My point is, I much prefer the map in Repo and how it works. In Repo, everyone has a map. Pressing tab will open it up and it shows room layouts, loot that has been spotted, and dead players that have been spotted in the same vein as the loot. In Lethal Company, any and all loot near a player shows up on the map. In Repo, only loot that has been previously highlighted will appear. That means you will have to comb through the level diligently, opening all the doors, chests, cabinets, and whatever else. After it's been spotted, all players will see it on their maps so they can grab it accordingly. I much prefer this, because not only is there that suspense of you don't know what's in the room, but also everyone gets to run around like a frantic loot goblin participating, trying to find everything, instead of just one person sitting back in the ship with a radio going like, yeah, there's 3 items of loot in there. There's an enemy in that other room. There's 2 loot in the room next to you. It's just boring. And the map is centered around each player with no ability to switch the focus. If you get separated, there is no way to tell the status of your friends. In a genre I don't exactly find scary, as the humor and insanity factors kind of negate it, it ratchets up the tension to a degree that I don't get in Lethal Company. In that game, if everyone has radios, and everyone's gonna have radios, the map watcher can just call out, yep, this person died, and that's that. The feeling of the unknown is unparalleled. Get separated while searching for loot or have a monster drive you away from the group. The other players have no idea if you're alive or not, and as a result, you wouldn't know if they had something happen either. That shit is great. The feeling of relief when you catch a snippet of a friend's voice a few rooms away, or spot the glare of a flashlight after a high-tension moment of loneliness, is fantastic. The map also does not show monster locations. So if you're hiding from something and you don't know exactly where it is, you gotta chance it. Again, the tension. All in all, the map shows 3 important things: room layout, spotted loot, and directions to the active extraction point or truck, depending on where you are in the level. Now, if one person happens to have a cart with a bunch of items, those items will be visible, leading to that player also being sort of visible. But I think we've all seen that clip of the huntsman pushing the cart, so even that isn't a guarantee. Which leads me to the enemies. Being able to actually hide and counter the monsters is a huge factor. In other games, a problem I have most of the time, especially when you're less experienced, is if you encounter an enemy, you're just fucked. No way around it. Sure, you can usually run, but stamina is so limited in these games that it only works for a few seconds. Specifically in Lethal Company, I've found that so many of the enemies will laser focus on the player and pursue to a fault, with some being fully invincible and dealing insta-kill level damage. This kind of ruins the fear factor for me. Sure, the first few times you get blindsided by a bracken or grabbed by a snare flea, it's startling and even scary, but after 2 or 3 hours, it turns from fear and suspense to annoyance and frustration, because I just know that I'm gonna turn a corner, instantly die, and have to sit for 15 minutes watching my friends have fun. Repo, on the other hand, rewards tactical thinking, understanding your surroundings, and knowing when to shut the fuck up. Littered throughout the level are many pieces of furniture that can be used as hiding spots. Crouching and walking underneath an object will cause a player to go hidden. This will hide the player from most enemies as it pulls them away from line of sight for the bigger ones. But not all enemies in R.E.P.O are created equal, leading to many unique encounters and synergies between monsters. As of making this video, R.E.P.O has 19 different monsters, each with fully unique mechanics, detection types, or counters, but most have all three. One of the first things I was told is that some of the monsters actually listen to the in-game voice chat, as in, they can hear you. That mechanic alone shakes up the entire experience. In multiplayer proximity chat games like this one, communication is essential to play the game effectively as well as just for, goofing off. Some monsters being able to disrupt that portion of gameplay is super neat and quite scary as well. The most notable enemy that uses this system is the Huntsman, the shotgun guy that's in so many clips, and for good reason too. He is completely blind. Cannot see the players at all, so you can walk around him to your heart's content, but you better be absolutely fucking silent. One peep into the mic, one object bump, anything that makes sound, and you will be dead before you can make another. It is an absolute magical thing to be yapping along with a group, happily grabbing junk and goofing off when he rounds a corner and every single person in the room goes dead silent, just waiting for him to move along. It's beautiful. Not all enemies use sound though. The Trudge, or as we call him, the Magma Man, seems to only use line of sight as a method of detection. It's a hulking, slow, massive creature with a vacuum ground slam attack thing that honestly is a bunch of bullshit. I've had way too many times where it pulls me out from behind a prop that I was certain I was safe behind, but I digress. He can't really chase the players as he's quite slow, but he tends to be a bit of a roadblock at the worst of times. Carelessness can also be a factor in an untimely death with the Trudge around. And then some enemies are unlike any others, like the Apex Predator, better known as that motherfucking duck. This one will pick a player and do its absolute best to get in the way of that player's cursor. Since the cursor is needed to, pick up items, it can get quite annoying. But the duck skull isn't annoyance. No. If you happen to be unlucky or stupid enough to grab the duck, it transforms into a raging beast and attacks the player that touched it. The fucker is nightmare fuel, and damn does he pack a punch. Unfortunately, its AI is a bit iffy at times. If it catches a stray from some monster, it kind of just doesn't know what to do, and it'll lash out at the nearest player with that rage attack. After a few seconds of the kill mode, it calms down and turns back into the deceptive shithead duck it is. These three monsters are entirely unique from each other in terms of how they scout and how they can be countered. For the Huntsman, hiding isn't strictly necessary, but silence is. For the Trudge, staying far enough away or out of its line of sight is good enough. And the duck can't exactly be hidden from, but instead the afflicted player just needs to avoid clicking it. But there is another way! Murder. None of the major enemies are invincible. Some have very large health pools and fast reaction times, like the Huntsman, but with the right weapons and determination, anything is possible. Actually, before we get to that, I need to take a quick detour and talk about the shop. After each level, you are brought to the shop, where you can spend your excess money earned from the previous level on various items and upgrades. There's a massive range of purchasable items, and I feel like every time I end up in the shop, I see something new. It has everything from stun grenades to these gravity tool things, spare carts, firearms, and so much more. I think the contents are randomly selected, but I'm not 100% on if there's different item pools as you reach higher levels. The shop also contains player upgrades, also randomly selected from a pool. Some are of the utmost importance, such as strength or stamina upgrades, and some are more of the if you have the money variety, like the tumble launch upgrade. They're useful enough, but there are better options to spend money on. In my opinion, the absolute most important upgrade to spend money on is strength. If you remember way back near the start of the video, I mentioned heavier objects and strength upgrades. This is where they come into play. Teamwork generally does make the dream work, but on later levels, time management and speed become very important as there are more extraction points and more monster spawns. Being able to lift heavy and unwieldy objects on your own is a massive advantage. Not all heavy objects should be carried by one player, as some are also just large, but there are plenty of smaller objects that are heavy or fragile that can be done with one person with sufficient strength. But that's not all. Remember, the entirety of this game is physics-based, movement, grabbing, object use, and enemies. This is where we circle back to enemy encounters. Because in R.E.P.O, running is valid, hiding is valid, but fighting back is not just also valid, but rewarding if done well. Fight! Fight! Aw, shit. Each enemy, just like each object, has weight. Some are very light and can be picked up right off the bat, such as the gnomes. In fact, the gnomes are an enemy that, much like the duck, aren't made to be hidden from. You fight back against them. Generally, this is done by just picking them up and bashing them into a wall, as they're light and weak, but weapons work too. As you progress with strength upgrades, you'll find that you can bully most other monsters in this same vein as well. Hell, with a bit of teamwork, even at low strength, you can take on enemies like the chef or the rugrat, though not easily. But I said fighting and killing monsters was rewarding, and it is. The larger enemies that pose an actual threat, so like the gnomes or the bomb guys, will drop this orb thingy that I think is supposed to be a soul or essence or something. I'm sure there will be lore in the future. For now on, it's just the soul. Regardless, these can run anywhere upwards of a few $1,000s, and given how the set enemies for a level can respawn, you can make a pretty penny from switching from hunted to hunter. And of course, weapons from the shop and also littered around the levels can give weaker players an edge if need be. Also, pits. God, there are so many bottomless and or kill pits in this game. Great for competent players to use as weapons, not so great for me. If I have one skill in life, it is falling into pits and dying, much to my friends' dismay. Burger King! Oh shit, pit!
Help me lift this. It's not.
What's this? What's this enticing pool of blue?
Go in it.
Something enticing, you should jump in.
You'll probably die if you do it.
Seth.
Save.
You saved me!
Right.
I knew you were gonna, Seth, I knew you were gonna do it. I fucking knew it.
Everyone knew.
The mind
Everyone
like a
knew.
fucking child. Wow. Who would have thunk? You know what? I'm not even gonna revive you. You're just gonna go right into the fucking pool. Dip, dip, potato chip.
And speaking of my friend's dismay, the unique features of the voice chat extend beyond the monsters being able to hear you. There are objects and enemies that can alter your voice either for audio cues or just pure silliness. For example, the one everyone knows, the hourglass. This one I think speaks for itself.
I'm 6 feet from the edge, and I'm think maybe 6 feet.
What are you guys doing?
Then there's enemies like the spewer and peeper that pitch a player's voice down and up respectively. It's little details like these that I really enjoy. And also, whoever coded the logic for the player's eyes and how they track other players is a genius. It's another small detail, but it adds so much to the comedic factor. I love it so much. And since some monsters hunt via sound, the text chat needs to be modified a bit compared to other games. Text chat options are imperative for any multiplayer game that has keyboard functionality, as not everyone has a microphone. But normal text chats generally work outside the scope of the actual game, usually being broadcast to a whole server or party in only text form. In R.E.P.O, instead of it being a chat window, it is a full text-to-speech system. I don't think I necessarily need to explain what that is, but it works flawlessly within the scope and the feel of R.E.P.O. As is standard with in-game text-to-speech, we do spend a fair amount of time just playing with it.
Okay. View. This one. Print plate. This one. Start.
And it's well thought out for what it is. Pitch and speed increases or decreases depending on the vertical look axis, and crouching/hiding will make it speak in a sort of stage whisper. Voice audio effects like from the spewer affect it, and items like the love potion will actually make the item holding it speak a random line as if the player typed it in. R.E.P.O is still a relatively small game, as it just released a couple months ago and hasn't really seen any major updates yet. There's only 3 level sets to work off of right now, which can get a little bit samey, but the monster levels are almost equal to Lethal Company, and honestly, I just find it a lot more fun. The dev team seems hard at work to bring more features to the game, and I for one am just excited to see what the future brings. I've played with mods in a couple sessions with some friends, and so far I'm really liking what I'm seeing out of the modding community. Although, just like with the game, the modders are still in a relatively new state. But really, I'm excited about the potential of the modding community in the future. But despite its small size, R.E.P.O is wonderfully polished. I've had little to no issues with glitches, performance, things not working right, or unexpected mayhem. I did have this weird bug in my first session where this tutorial screen wouldn't go away after I'd entered a lobby with my friends, but I'm pretty sure that's just because the game didn't expect me to go straight from the tutorial to a lobby with my friends, and it kind of freaked out there. When I rebooted the game, it went away, so everything's fine. All I know is that for me, R.E.P.O is currently the pinnacle of co-op horror, and I cannot wait to see how things progress. Thank you for watching, and have a good night.